to today's Shining the Light on Our Community. And I've got a very special guest. I'm really excited and really, really interested in this wonderful conversation that we're going to have with the beautiful Daniela, all the way from Germany, tuning in. And we're going to have a conversation about the grid blueprint and so much more. So, Daniela, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Sophia.
Really, I said I'm really excited, and I'm very interested in what we're going to be talking about, and your topic is knowing thyself as an indispensable leadership tool. That's just gone straight to my heart, the energy of that. That's wow. So let me just introduce you to all our beautiful listeners. So Daniela Hartmann's lifelong passion is to study and to navigate cultures, work environments, political and spiritual belief systems worldwide. Wow. You've worked as a journalist, a UN employee, United Nations employee, and has immersed herself for over 20 years in Tibetan Buddhist philosophy. Oh my God, we could just have a conversation just about that. Love it.
Sure.
And Daniela has lived in 8 countries in 4 continents and traveled all over the globe, and now has woven her strands of learnings and experiences into the grid blueprint, which we're going to find out more about it. So, and there's so much more. So thank you, Daniela, for joining us. Thank you so much. What I'd love to do is just to start with is to find out about you, more about you, from you, and tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to now and helping others with their leadership tools.
Well, I started off already as a child as a very international traveler. My first move was when I was 3 months old, I believe. The second one when I was 6 months old. Then we moved from Germany to Paris, and it just continued on that way. Switzerland, Germany, international schools. And then I went into journalism. I modeled between school, but that my parents thought that wouldn't really be, a lifelong work environment for me. So they got me into journalism. I loved it. Studied political science, and then went to the UN. I loved it there as well because it couldn't be more international. Working in New York and Geneva and South Africa, but I also found out, it's very complex, international politics, so many different needs, opinions, wants, interests, that I found my values were a bit challenged, especially when I was in Africa, and I had to rethink really how I want to lead my life. And so I had already started studying Buddhism, and I left for South India to a monastery, and I learned philosophy and the language for about 9 years, 8.5 years, and then traveled with a teacher for another 10 years, living in Nepal, Nepal mainly, in Kathmandu.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back to Germany a few months ago.
Mm-hmm. And now you're helping others to know themselves, to step into their power of leadership.
Yeah. The main thing about Buddhism, of course, is to know our own mind, our own consciousness, because
Yes.
as the Buddha said, our thoughts make our world. Whatever we send out is what we receive back or perceive back. So we really have to train our mind and become the master of our own mind. And seeing how the world has changed so dramatically in the last 3 years, how many structures are crumbling, how many people are rethinking their ways to live, how to be.
Mm-hmm.
It is so important to know ourselves, know our motivations, know our triggers in order to step forward as our personal leader in our lives, but also within international organizations, financial organizations, and so on, to find new ways and to co-create with a broader population. Because as we all know, the power down is slowly crumbling. It's becoming more collaborative and more community oriented.
It is, isn't it? And slowly you can feel the shift. You can feel the shift where people are coming much more into like you said, the community orientated and letting go of the power structures as such and coming back to heart and things and serving with heart. Must have been fantastic experiences, traveling and things like that. And tell us more, because you've got a book, The Grid. So tell us how you've gone from the Tibetan Buddhism into working with leaders.
Well, it started about 2020, of course, and continued on to 21, that a lot of people asked me about meditation. Before, they hadn't been so interested. But at that time, suddenly they were at home. Suddenly they had to rethink their lives. There were so many new things coming up for them that I was apparently a person to talk to about it. And I figured out how many people actually were not able to fully get in touch in what they really wanted and who they really were. And going back into my experiences at the UN in these sort of structures, I met many people who were like, how we're going to do it now, that suddenly people gather online, suddenly things are being questioned. And so I sat down with a beautiful lady early this year, Katrina Friel, and we started looking at how can we actually bring it into formula. And the grid is growth, responsibility, integrity, and diversity. So how do we grow, become who we are? How do we take responsibility for ourselves, our mind, live in integrity in a very diverse world?
Absolutely. And that is wonderful. I'd just like to take a moment just to really honor you for bringing that to the world and how we can actually do it. So all the information, all the steps and things like that is available in your book?
Well, it's an outline. Mm-hmm. But what I have started to do over the last 3 years is really work one-on-one with a lot of people, mostly friends, mostly acquaintances. But I found that the need is so urgent because people also themselves want to be authentic. So much is going on around them, so much information, so many different kinds of information, that finding their inner truth or the inner anchor gives them safety, a navigation point, and then they can reach out. And what I like to look at is, if we're authentic as leaders, as normal people, then there's coherence between our messages, our thinking, and our actions. And if there's coherence, then we can start to be reliable partners, leaders, companions, friends, whatever we want to be. We're accountable, we take responsibility. So there's a direct string between authenticity and how we are in the world, and that we are aligned in ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And tell us more, like with your grid concept, with the book and everything else like that, the structure of it. Tell us more. Are there any other steps that we can become really authentic? Because I know, like in today's world, the shift is there, but you still get a lot of people, especially in leadership roles, in communities and corporations and everything else, that they still haven't stepped into the power of who they truly are.
Well,
so tell us how we can do that.
Well, the first step for me is with growth, is to deep dive into how have we actually become who we are. And it's a very individual thing. In Buddhism, we talk a lot about impermanence and change. So to understand that we're all a work in progress. Whoever we were yesterday, or we're not today, and we won't be tomorrow, but the now or the present moment is the opening to the future. And we can learn from the past. So when we start to get to know ourselves in a safe space, in a way of actually befriending ourselves, then we can slowly get to know each other and ourselves mainly. And from that growth, from that understanding of ourselves, we can go into responsibility. So start working with our mind. Of course, use meditation, contemplation, aligning our thinking mind or brain mind with a heart mind and the gut mind, because we're in a time now where intuition, where personal feelings are becoming more important. And then we go into integrity. What are actually my values? What do I want to live? Where can I compromise on? Where can't I compromise on? And then when we know who we are, when we're nicely settled in ourselves, we know our own lens, so to speak, and can go out and talk to others, connect with a world outside, and learn from others, be supported by others, support others. If we're anchored in ourselves, if we don't know ourselves, we will all the time be kind of pushed back and forth by different opinions, by different thoughts, by different moods of people. So this is what I teach people and deep dive with them, so we can sort of explore together what our inner anchor point is.
Absolutely, thank you. So, and that's what I was just going to ask. So you actually help people one-on-one?
One-on-one, yes. Mostly,
One-on-one.
I also do workshops, but the one-on-one work, especially when it comes to leaders, when it comes to people where for a long time they have worked alone, and have not opened up or looked into themselves. It is nice to have a safe space to just work together on their own pace.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And it's wonderful that you offer that for people, that nice, safe space where we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable.
Yeah, and befriend ourselves. I find that so many people actually are so hard on themselves and so relentless with themselves, and then this aggression goes outward.
Mm-hmm.
And then the aggression or the self, maybe even hate, but at least not being settled in themselves, this irritation, this anxiety, this is something that I've really noticed, that people are trying to put out a front, try to be someone else, have a mask on, have so scared to be found out that there is no relaxation within themselves, and that discordance between what they really feel, what they believe they feel, and how they act outside is just it's just the breeding ground of anxiety or irritation.
Totally. When you're not being when you're not being your true self, when you're not living to your own true values, and you're always trying to be someone else, or what you think or who you think other people would like you to be, then yes, I totally agree that it leads to resentment, regret, things like that, discord, because you're not living to your true values. So that is wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing that. Is there anything else that you would like to share about the grid, and how we can step into the power of who we truly are?
I think really the first step is what Roshi Joan Halifax, I don't know if you know her, she's a friend of mine and quite known in the US as a Zen Buddhist. She talks about strong back, soft front. Yes. So if we know ourselves properly, a strong back can be straight, but it can also bend, it can yield, if it needs to. So it's not about being self-absorbed, self-centered, but just to have our own inner sanctuary that we can rely on. And then we can open our front. Then we can be open towards the world, discuss with others, learn about each other, be respectful to each other. So I think knowing ourselves really is the first step for happiness, for proper relationships, and for rebuilding these new structures that are coming so, so fast.
Mm, and getting ready for whatever the shift brings. All the things, as you said, all the new structures. So thank you for sharing that. And Danielle, just before we go, and for everyone who is watching, we do have quite a few people watching. Do click on the link that I just put in for Daniela's website. I will be putting more links in as soon as we finish our conversation. But can I ask you just a little bit, with everything that you've experienced, in your life stuff, what, and in the world that we live in that is constantly changing and really pushing us to grow, pushing us to change, pushing us to step into who we are, what motivates you every day to get out of bed in the morning and to share your passion with the world?
Curiosity. I think that's for me the number one. I think the amazing thing about these days is that with the internet and all the social media, the whole world is at our fingertips. And,
Yes.
We can meet now. It's 9 p.m. for me. It's 5 a.m. for you. And with all these people watching, we can learn from each other. The life has just so many facets. And if we learn how to connect to each other on commonalities, and from these commonalities, because we have a shared humanity, we can shout at each other as much as we want. We all have to live together, no matter what. So from that shared humanity, to explore the differences, the different experiences, the different lenses, that for me is extremely fascinating.
And stuff, and just learning. I love it.
Oh, constantly.
Constant learning.
And I'm not, who I was a couple of years ago. And I find, with the tools that I've learned through Buddhism and by my life experience, I know that I can navigate how I want to grow.
Mm.
And so that is really exciting to me.
It would be. And I hear you, especially with all the tools from Buddhism and all the knowledge and the wisdom and stuff, and how that helps us in our lives every day. So thank you. And is there any other questions that I could have asked you?
No, actually, I'm quite satisfied. I'm happy.
I'm happy. Okay, thank you. So for everyone who is watching, do click on the links. Check out Daniela's website and the book. Now, your book is available through your website?
Yes, and Amazon.
And Amazon. And Amazon stuff. That is The Grid, Uncovering Heart-Centered Leaderships for Those Working with Humans. Love it. Oh, that's just gone. Like I said, the power of that has just gone straight into my heart. Definitely will be checking that out. So thank you so much. Thank you so very much for coming on today. Really look forward to connecting with you again. And
I hope so.
And also for everyone who is watching, do click on the links. Check out Daniela's website and get yourself a copy of The Grid, because I'm sure there is so much benefit in there for anyone, like I said, for anyone who's working with other humans, which most of us are, even if it's within our own families, even if it's within ourselves, becoming our own leader is so vital. So thank you, Daniela, and I look forward to chatting with you again sometime very, very, very soon.
Thank you, Sophia. Have a wonderful day.